making a response video to derived energy. Well, who knows who it's to, really. Text video. I really hate text videos. Really hate them. If you're going to do it, put the text in the description. So I don't have to waste my time, please. Alright, the only problem is halfway through the video here, it just goes blah 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 blah. The only problem emerges when one attempts to derive an ought to statement from an is statement or a series of statements by employing only logical reasoning. I mean, it's just idiotic. I mean, if you establish an is statement that basically defines the reality that, okay, there's another dimension that exists, okay, there's a fourth dimension that's time, and there's a fifth dimension that's mass, and there's a sixth dimension that is basically value, okay, and in that dimension, the aberrations of consciousness, the nuances of consciousness, yeah, that's their dimension, yeah, yeah, there's a value equation there, alright? It's not a moral doctrine, it's just the value equation exists. There's this much negative shit and this much, well, I don't think there is anything else but negative shit, to tell you the truth, and just lesser degrees of it inside our perception. And so, yeah, there's a big pile of negative, there's a big pile of shit in that sixth dimension. And that's an is. There is a big pile of shit there. And it's a bad thing. Bad is a word we understand. It's bad is associated with things like dysfunction and things like inefficiency, unproductivity, negative. These are real words, real concepts. So once you is it into that bad state, ought is an automatic, because the whole concept of ought is always. The only legitimate oughts are oughts that minimize the negative and enhance the positive. There's no reasonable or rational or sensible ought that could ever be any other way. This is just stupid. I mean, I just hate that. This is just stupid. I mean, intellectuals have to sit there and play these fucking goddamn word games. They can't just honestly say, oh yeah, we're conscious. Our consciousness has no material reality. It's made by material things, like the earth has gravity, like a magnet has magnetism. Our brain creates consciousness. It's a fact. It's a reality. We experience it. We have personal testimony, and it's all consistent from human to human. We can see it in the animals, the other mammals. We can see it through the whole stages of evolution. We understand why it exists. It exists to create motivation, and motivation is created by whips and carrots, bad things, good things. We can use words like that, good and bad, and as soon as we say good or bad, there's an ought. Duh. There's a should. There's an enhanced performance equation. There's a value equation. Alright, it is not at all clear to me how one could possibly do this. Well, like I said, I don't know what you're missing. The word ought is built out of it. So you're just saying the word ought shouldn't exist in the vocabulary. So that means the word should shouldn't exist in the vocabulary. On the word like, so then you might as well get rid of all concepts that have something to do with recognizing that it's better, might as well get rid of better, you might as well get rid of every word that implies some sort of obligation or some sort of concession to the fact that there is a better state and a lesser state, that there's winning and there's losing. You can't win, you know, if you create more suffering than you prevent. Okay, I mean, because somebody's obviously going to be able to do better than that. I mean, in that sense, you can't win, but you can't win as an absolute, because that's the value measure. Your existence will be positive or negative based on that equation. That's the value equation. You more harm created than prevented or ameliorated. Alright, come on, get to it already. I just hate this shit. I can't explain to somebody why they should not pour corrosive acid onto babies' eyes for their own amusement. So just think about that. So you're an intelligent guy, and you can't explain to an asshole why he should not pour corrosive acid onto a baby's eyes if it makes him happy. So you can't explain to a pedophile why he shouldn't act. Well, I guess that's why you like Michael Jackson, right? You can't concede the truth about him either. I mean, it's bizarre. So if somebody wants to do something, they should do it. So I don't know why you're telling people that their want to have children is somehow illegitimate. I'm going to tell them it's illegitimate. I'm going to tell them it's unethical. I'm going to tell them they ought not to do it if they intend to live a productive life, because it's an act that's going to jeopardize their capacity to be productive, because they're just going to create liability. They're going to create the potential for the roof to leak. Don't build the roof, it ain't going to leak. Don't float the boat, it ain't going to sink. I mean, yeah, there's no logic to it. You can't win doing that. That's why you ought not to do it, because of the potential for harm. But I mean, this sentence, this paragraph, I mean, what do you want me to say to this? I mean, it's just too stupid. I mean, I can't explain to somebody why they should not pour corrosive acid into a baby's eyes for their own amusement. Well, you could at least say, I could explain to them that I'm going to kill them if they try. If I watch them and I know they're going to pour corrosive acid into a baby's eyes, I'm likely going to stick a knife in their nuts, or distract them some other way. I mean, this is pitiful. This is why human beings are incapable of getting this. It's because they're so caught up in their babble and their bullshit and their nonsense. They can't speak honestly. They can't say anything honestly. Everything's covered in this wordification, or it's covered in other little scapegoats. Little Occam razor kind of nonsense, or some other kind of bullshit that's told. The fail-safe position is to say, I love you, Jesus. No, that's the guaranteed to be an asshole position. All I can do is make a series of is statements and then make some appeals to a superstitious fiction called objective morality. Well, again, you want to call it a morality. I mean, I think I said in my video, I've made repeated efforts to say that there's not some book written in the universe. All right? Just as we don't even have laws covering all the crimes that exist. We don't criminalize everything that's wrong behavior. We don't punish everybody who's guilty of wrong behavior, unproductive behavior. And yeah, the universe isn't. There's no universal cop that's going to enforce some morality. It's not written down somewhere. All right, it's just a fact of the value equation. You put the 1 in, and you put the plus and sign, and you put the 1 in, and then you have the equal sign, and then you have the 2. It's a value equation. All right, and so suffering is the value. That's the quanta of value. Now, you either understand that or you don't understand that. You either accept the premise or you don't, but that's the is statement. And once you've established that is statement, you can't unravel it with any kind of bullshit. There's no way you undo the fact of it. Once you've stated it as an is, you've created the ought. The ought is that you now have to create a productive equation out of this negative. Fuck. Alright, whatever. Come on, get to the next little pile of crap. I can imagine your blood blowing with anger as you read this. No, it's not anger. It's just disappointment. It's revulsion. It's nausea. I'm just so fucking sick of assholes. People with fucking brains playing idiotic, moronic word games. I'm just so fucking sick of it. God isn't God. But, the concept of God is godly, and we should maybe keep the idea of the mystical, magical, because, all that crap in the Bible is a pile of shit, but let's just keep the fable instead. I mean, there's intelligent people doing that. Intelligent people doing this bullshit. No, I don't really give a fuck about you placating me. Again, it doesn't matter. It's just a fact, all right? The intelligent people are assholes. I'm sorry. Intelligent people are motherfucking jackasses, just like the other religious fucks. You're all a bunch of fucking dumb bastards. I mean, you can't, it's just it's so ludicrous. You're fucking conscious, and yet you deny your consciousness. Fucking brilliant. Well, whatever. You might be a talking monkey, okay? I'm a great ape. So, yeah, that might be your problem right there. You're just a jabbering monkey. I'm a great ape, and this great ape can grasp the concept that there is hundreds of billions of neurons in my head, and they create a fantastically, incredibly sophisticated effect called consciousness, and it has as part of its sensation this ability to have a analog feeling of welfare, a feeling of comfort and a feeling of discomfort, of pain and of pleasure. And although they are illusionary, they are functions in no space, okay, beyond the nuance of a particular type of movement, just as magnetism is a function of a particular kind of atomic structure. The fact is, I experience it. I know it firsthand. I don't need anybody to tell me it doesn't exist. It just is a waste of my time to even indulge in nonsense like that, because it exists just as much as I could say this isn't in virtual reality. I mean, we could make the argument that this is all just virtual reality, and then a double doesn't exist. But what's the difference? I mean, there's no point in doing it, because we experience it. And so even if it was completely virtual, all right, we can testify, we can yell out to the space that it's real. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I mean, it's just stupid to sit there and say the fact is whether it's just a crayon drawing on a piece of paper. All right, if it's going to be sentient, then okay, that's the game. It's a game now. It's not just a drawing anymore. Like I said, it's stupid. I have to argue this shit. I would argue that there are no objective moral truths out there woven into the very fabric of space and time or some other such place. Well, again, I don't know what you're expecting. God writes things down, okay? He does the Ten Commandment thing in the rocks. Okay, a universe doesn't write it down. But they're there for us to discover, this value equation. Okay, it's there for us to discover. This and this are two different things. They have a common material form. They're made up of atoms and molecules and quanta and stuff moving at the speed of light and all kinds of shit. But they are functionally different things. This one has manifested something distinctly different from what this is manifesting. And that's just a fact. And if you accept it, it has a consequence. Okay, that's a consequence that's woven into the very fabric of space and time. It's a fact woven into the fabric of space and time that my sentience makes me different than this thing. So here now you're saying it implies something. If there were such truths, then that would imply. Why would it imply? Why would there? What evidence is there of any notion of justice or balance in the universe? The whole universe could be a tremendous imbalance. That's why gravity exists. That's maybe why electricity exists. Maybe why magnetism exists. Is because it's a symptom of imbalance, not balance. So why would why would there be an implication that there would be a police force saying, I'm going to fix it? There's no implication of that. There's no intelligence here in the universe but us. So why would there be any implication that somehow it would undo itself or fix itself? It could be completely broken and there'd be nobody to fix it. There's no rule against it. There's no janitor out there but us. Anyway, some kind of moral laws which prohibit immoral violation acts from occurring. Again, I guess it's just you just made this shit up. Where do you derive this implication from? Where in any piece of the universe do we have any evidence that there would be any implication of any requirement to clean up the mess? There's no fucking implication. The whole fucking universe could be, a spilt bedpan. Perhaps something similar to the laws that govern the influence. Oh, here, this ought to be good. Of gravity on free-falling objects. So you're saying that somehow gravity is a balance? Maybe it's an imbalance. Because the thing sucks it in and then it has to explode it back out again. I mean, there's just no... This is just made up crap. So your premise is that somehow this is a piece of evidence why there can't be some sort of ethical dimension, some ethical reality, some value dimension, some value reality in the universe, and your reasoning is because there's nothing to fix it if it's out of balance? Well, I'm afraid there is no requirement. I could argue that every bit of energy moving at the speed of light might be doing so out of imbalance, not balance. Alright, come on, hurry up. Oh, demonstration. Yeah, well thanks. This is, only a little bit patronizing and insulting. To illustrate. Oh, now we're going to illustrate something. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Victims show that an average of 207 victims age older rape and sexual assault every year. Oh, whatever. I don't need this preaching bullshit. I'm the one arguing that there is suffering in the world. They are objective because they are true regardless of whether Homo sapiens... Okay, we better go back up a little. See, this is why I wish you'd just write it so I wouldn't have to fucking skip over crap! Alright, conclusion. Here we go. Conclusion. There are no objective moral truths and no objective moral laws. Well, whatever. I mean, moral... You keep using the word, and I think you know that in my videos I repeatedly say this is a bullshit word. I'd rather say value truths, ethical truths. Yeah, let's just go with value truths. So, conclusion. There are no objective value truths and no objective value laws. Well, let's get rid of laws, because that just implies like somehow the universe writes laws, and it doesn't. It doesn't even obey the laws out there. I mean, some of these are laws of probability, laws of likelihood, not laws of draconian mandate. Let's see, there are no objective moral truths, so there are no objective value truths. Okay, so the word objective is always going to be a problem. My biggest gripe is I would be willing to throw out the word objective if you throw out the word subjective. Because what annoys me is to say that this is that there's any point, really, in the subjective perspective. Okay, the subject looking at the object and saying, well, how I'm going to decide as the subject, okay, over here, whether that object is suffering or not. And that'll decide whether it is suffering. I think it's just bullshit. It's suffering whether I recognize it or not. I don't need to exist for that object to be suffering. So, in my opinion, that is totally broken if we're going to start using subjects to decide what's happening to the object. And my biggest gripe, too, is that this word, to me, has always meant perspective. Objective perspective. So from an objective perspective, I can understand that a rat is a sentient being. If I see it trapped in a maze that makes no sense, I'm going to facilitate its freedom from its encumbrance, because it's an objectively sensible, rational, productive, good thing to do. That's why I'm going to do it. There are only objective facts about how the universe operates. Well, again, you're saying that part of the function of the universe is not consciousness. Consciousness is not a function of the universe. It's not a function of matter. It's not a function of electricity. It's not a function of even quanta. It's not a function. Consciousness is not a function by your definition, because you're denying what it does. Alright, well, there are only objective facts about how the universe operates. They are value neutral. So the facts are value neutral. So I can't say it as a fact that suffering sucks. I can't say it as a fact that suffering is a negative state of being, especially on a relative scale, suffering versus not suffering in a conscious state, or even in an unconscious state. That I couldn't make some kind of statement like, I'd rather be this bottle for the next 10 minutes than a child having acid poured in its eyes for the next 10 minutes. I mean, if I have a choice between those two things, it's an obvious choice. It would be a better, more desirable, more preferable, more functional, more productive, less harmful, less negative, less destructive, less painful, less everything negative state of being. There. I don't know. I can say that. And I can say it authoritatively, in my opinion. As authoritatively as I can say anything else about anything else in this fucking room of mine. I can say that about that truth. I'm more confident about that truth than I am that this camera isn't a fucking Martian. Secretly, of course. They are objective because they are true regardless of whether Homo sapiens append them or accept them or not. Well, I'm going to argue that it doesn't matter what Homo sapiens... Again, if there were people on Mars, it wouldn't matter what fucking Earthlings were thinking. Alright? If they were suffering, they'd still be suffering. And vice versa. If there was Martians... our welfare would still be a reality, whether they knew about us, whether they cared about us, whether they thought about us or not. We'd still have a welfare. We'd still be sentient creatures, struggling in a sea of value dilemma, and that's just the truth. Struggling in the value dimension, swimming in the value dimension. We'd be swimming in it. Morality is an entirely different issue. Again, I don't use this word, so you're just insulting my intelligence by using it over and over and over again. I've made repeated videos, repeatedly stated, I think it's a fucking suck word. I only use it when I have to. It sucks. Please don't waste my time using that word. Use value. Value is an entirely different issue. It is wholly contingent on sentient animals' appraisal of ethical issues and circumstances. It's just stupid to say that. An animal doesn't have to have any rational capacity whatsoever to suffer. It doesn't have to be aware of any equations or contingents of any kind of appraisals or anything. It just has to know it's in pain and it's in the value sea. All it has to do is experience the negative sensation. Is this the end or what? Okay. It is therefore by its very nature subjective in nature. Well, again, that just isn't bullshit. Objective morality is an oxymoron. Well, you could say the same thing. Objective materiality is an oxymoron. You could say the same thing. I could just argue that there is no reality. It's all virtual reality. It's actually virtual reality in virtual reality in virtual reality in virtual reality. So it's 7 dimensions away from even being close to reality. And even that reality is probably virtual reality. I mean, I could just make an argument that just turn all matter into nothing, turn it all into an illusion, and then you can pretend that it doesn't matter. I think that's just absolute horseshit. So go ahead, play your stupid idiotic word games and call yourself an intellectual. And you can't figure out that suffering is a negative state of being in a rational value equation. It is a logically incoherent notion, just as free will is. Well, that's a straw man. I'm not arguing for free will, idiot. or the idea that someone can be benefited by coming into existence. I'm also not arguing that people are benefited by coming into existence. That's another straw man. Again, if you want to just argue what's logically incoherent based on your standards of evidence, if we're not going to use our reasonable deductive faculties, and what we're going to do is just imagine all the possible ways we could be deceived, and then just say, well, we can't know anything because it all could be a deception. Yeah, I think that's incoherent. I think that's unreasonable, illogical, incoherent, completely fucktarded. So yeah, you're a fucktard. Yeah. Congratulations. There's a little bit more. Even an omnipotent, God, which I've never even said these words out loud, I don't think. I mean, who the fuck cares about this bullshit? Could not be a source of objective morality. Well, obviously, because you couldn't know that the God was a fake God. You could always be a liar. There would either be a circular reasoning involved. It is objectively moral. Well, I'm just saying, you were making an argument with somebody who was calling it the need for a God because it creates an objective morality. So your argument shouldn't have been that you don't have an objective morality. Because the religious guy was saying basically you're left out. You don't get any objective truth. Well, they don't have an objective truth either because obviously they don't know what God is God. Right? I mean, is Mohammed God or Jesus God or Buddha God? What God is God? And even if a God did show up, like I said, how are they going to test his credentials? How are they going to know he's not a liar? Just a used car salesman, working this side of the universe. There would either be a sort of objective moral because God says so, or alternative, God would have to derive objects' morality from a source outside of himself. Yeah. Well, I would think that God would also be subject to some sort of value equation. I mean, God was sad. The Jesus God, he was sad when he, killed everybody. He didn't feel good about it, apparently. So apparently in his universe, in his dimension, there's also a value equation where feeling bad is not good, quite obviously. And so you do things so you don't feel bad. So the same mechanism is functioning for that God. All right. So anyway, the bottom line is that we can reasonably deduce this stuff. We can reasonably deduce it beyond reasonable doubt. And that's the only standard there ever going to be for anything. That's the only standard there is, reasonable doubt. There's just no reasonable doubt that consciousness is a phenomenon that we're experiencing, and that it has significance, just on its face. And like I said, I can't, it's very difficult to prove something like a feeling. I mean, how do you prove something that doesn't have a material form? You're proving the effect. And it doesn't have, the effect doesn't have an effect. I can't make this bottle, there's no gravity, like you point. I can't make the bottle gravitate towards my consciousness to show it in some indirect way. But again, I don't need to, because all you other assholes are supposed to be conscious. So you know what feelings are. You know they're as real as anything else in your material world. Why would you? Where would the reasonable doubt? Why would you reasonably doubt that they are the source of value? That suffering, that sentience, creates value mass in the universe, value weight, value reality. That's what it creates. Sentience creates value reality. There is no value in the universe if it doesn't affect something that can be harmed. And harm can only happen to something sentient. I mean real harm. I mean harm by at least the definition, which would be the causing of some sort of unpleasant sensation. Undesirable sensation. Negative sensation. I can't believe I just had to yammer for a half a fucking hour explaining to people what 5-year-olds know. I mean, 5-year-olds know suffering sucks. They don't need to explain. They know that somebody ought not to pour acid in their eyes. They know that. They could say it. You ought not to pour acid in my fucking eyes. They're smart enough to say that. And you fuckers with your fucking college degrees are going to tell that 5-year-old, no, you're really wrong. You know, you have no right to tell them they ought not to. You know, you have no business doing that. It's completely illogical to tell them they ought not to because you have nothing to found that on. I have nothing to say to you fuckers except you're fucking idiots.